Sometimes it can take decades for gun control to be used and abused by the anti-gunners in ways the law's drafters never intended. And here's just one example. The 1968 ban for mental defectives sat around for like 25 years before the anti-gun Clinton administration decided to use that to disarm more than 150,000 law-abiding veterans who had never been before a court. And here's another, and it's the point of today's video. The plastic gun ban is another massive time bomb, just sitting there in federal law, and it will be reauthorized in the next couple of years if we don't stop it. The gun ban we're talking about today supposedly outlaws plastic guns, but it was so poorly drafted, it's potentially much broader. Our story begins following the election of 1986. Democrats had just won control of the U.S. Senate, and Senator Joe Biden of Delaware would become chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Anti-gun Democrat Senator from Ohio, Howard Metzenbaum, proposed a ban on all guns that contained less than 8.5 ounces of steel. His plan was to grandfather all guns prior to the enactment of the law, although that only applied to the original owner, meaning you couldn't inherit or transfer a grandfathered weapon. Now, as intelligent gun owners, let's game out what this smooth-brain gun control might affect. Well, going by weight, full-size Glocks have well over 8.5 ounces of steel. So we're talking about smaller firearms. Think Derringers, .22s, .25 caliber handguns. And in a way, that kind of makes sense because this was the tail end of the war on handguns from back in the day, and just before the anti-gunners began coining the term assault weapon. This was their last-ditch attempt to ban small guns, which they called Saturday Night Specials. In fact, Sarah Brady had only just been elected to the board of Handgun Control, Inc., and hadn't even founded the Brady Center to prevent handgun violence yet. But we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. What else could a ban on firearms with less than 8.5 ounces of steel affect? If you guessed non-steel metal firearms, then you're correct. Many firearms use or could use non-steel metal parts, like aluminum, zinc alloys, and other light metals and materials in the frame and on other parts to keep weights down on quality firearms. And don't forget that plenty of historic firearms also include parts made from bronze or brass or iron. Put simply, this wasn't a ban on just plastic guns. Desperate to compromise on your right to keep and bear arms, both anti-gunners and typically pro-gun senators introduced their own versions of this legislation. And remember, in these days, there was still a lot of Democrats elected on a pro-gun platform. So a compromise was struck with the Undetectable Firearms Act of 1988, which you can read at 18 U.S.C. 922P if you want to get PO'd. As a result, the bill didn't ban a single firearm that had ever actually been manufactured. Like, it was banning guns that didn't exist. And some well-known gun groups endorsed this legislation. But gun owners of America opposed it, and for good reason. This legislation would stifle innovation in the firearms industry for years to come, does nothing to promote public safety, and of course violates your Second Amendment rights. And it sets a terrible precedent. This was the first time Congress had ever passed a bill to ban a type of firearm. Less than 10 years later, Congress passed the assault weapons ban of 1994. So there's that connection. Ever since, this bill has needed reauthorization every few years. And so that's how DC works. Bills get passed, but you have to appropriate money for them every so often. The last time Congress fought GOA for these funds was in 2013. And in an op-ed in USA Today, GOA's Eric Pratt wrote, "In the hands of an anti-gun president and attorney general, the language could be expanded to cover guns with non-metal parts, even guns with wood stocks. Supporters claim that we need this law to stop bad guys from smuggling guns onto planes. But guess what? Renewing a ban on plastic firearms will not stop criminals from making them or stealing them, any more than Chicago's gun restrictions have been effective in stopping shootings there." Okay guys, that is big brain stuff right there. Erica's right. Smuggling guns onto planes will still be against the law, with or without a plastic gun ban. And airport security X-ray machines will still be able to detect them. Truth be told, The Republican Congress solved the problem of terrorists carrying weapons onto planes after 9/11, not through additional gun bans, but by passing GOA-endorsed legislation to allow pilots to use guns to defend themselves and their passengers. As you might expect from a bunch of trunkless pachyderms, Congress reauthorized the plastic gun ban in 2013, which sets up the ban for a reauthorization fight by 2023. That's right around the corner. Now that you know the history of the plastic gun ban, you can prepare to fight it alongside GOA. Biden and his anti-gun lackeys kicked this fight into gear with their proposed ghost gun ban. But we'd be fools if we didn't expect the anti-gunners to shift their ghost gun rhetoric into turbo to expand the ban in this next fight. Gun owners of America will not compromise with your right to keep and bear arms, so we need you to fight with us.